I'm going to go with the staff if you're the CEO. This business is over. Holding a pile of envelopes from the desk, Tucker said as he stood in the CEO's office. I reasoned. So, that's how it is. In the past, I had flatly refused Tucker's demands when he came to discuss his pay. While leaving, he muttered something along the lines of, "You'll regret this." He appears to be attempting to persuade people to accept his resignation. Although I am to blame for letting a disobedient worker like him get away with it, I made sure to check with Tucker, because this is a serious issue. Tucker, just to confirm, you have decided to resign from the company, correct? I inquired. With a chuckle, Tucker held his stomach. Obviously. That's what I've always been saying. There is no other option because you will not increase my pay. Talented individuals today are aware of when to leave a dull organization. Thank you, I murmured, looking Tucker in the eye after hearing this. That is really beneficial. We'll take the required actions immediately. Tucker looked at me bewildered and said, "What?" without realizing what was about to happen. He is still unaware that a really unpleasant reality is going to be revealed. You can call me Shane Conway. I am the CEO of a new aid company, and I am in my 30s. It may sound amazing to be the CEO of a startup, but I did not establish this business. There is nothing to be proud of because I became the CEO by accident. This business was founded by my father a few years ago, but he suddenly became unwell and died without getting better. It's not surprising that he overexerted himself because he had been working nonstop and hardly getting any sleep. I worked for a big trade company and lived overseas for a number of years while Dad was running the business. I was aware that he had launched a company, but he left before I could see his hardships and successes. Dad had urged me to work for the company once, but that chance was gone forever. I had no concerns about the future. My thrifty lifestyle had allowed me to save a sizable amount of savings. I was enticed when Dad shared his aspirations to launch a business with me. But I told him I wanted to concentrate on finishing a big project at work before making a decision because I was in the middle of it. I found out about his death before I could finish that assignment. I went back home, quit my trading firm, and took over my father's company. I can't say I'm very proud of myself in light of these circumstances, but I also can't keep looking back. Dad was always encouraging and supportive. I had a difficult past, but I currently work for a large trade organization. I had trouble fitting in middle school and had to transfer to a charter school. Pursue what you love and focus on your strengths, my father advised me at the time. You'll find out what you're good at eventually. I was inspired by such suggestion to pursue programming, computer science, and other fields that I thought would be interesting or helpful in the future. Thanks to his encouragement, I developed apps and interacted with people worldwide, even while still in middle school. I want to honor Dad's memory by taking the company public and making it a force for good in society. Fulfilling his dreams would be the ultimate way to repay him. With that vision in mind, I am now managing the company he left behind. After about a year of running the company, I began noticing various issues within it. Operational inefficiencies are relatively easy to fix, but the real challenge lies in people. Moreover, the problem is even deeper rooted because of the behavior of a certain person who serves as the general manager, a position in which he manages his subordinates. The department manager's name was Tucker, but his work attitude was clearly excessive. Reports from other employees indicated that Tucker spends much of his working hours on side gigs. "Mr. Conway, I'm heading out for a bit," Tucker said casually. Perhaps because he's in his 40s and older than me, Tucker has spoken to me informally since I became CEO. Given our operations, there's almost no reason for Tucker to need to visit the post office, so I stopped him. "Thank you for your hard work. May I ask where you're headed?" Tucker gave me an annoyed look and replied, "It's nothing. Sometimes you need to go out for work. I have a personal client to pay today." As he spoke, he picked up a large package and prepared to leave the office. However, Our company rarely handles cash or face-to-face transactions. Most of our processes are handled online. Moreover, finance and sales usually manage payments, so this wasn't part of Tucker's job. His explanation didn't make sense to me at all. We make payments online, don't we? And what's in that package? Are you delivering something to a client? When I pressed further, Tucker frowned and spoke quickly. The client isn't tech-savvy and only accepts in-person payments. Besides, getting out of the office once in a while boosts productivity. The package is just my stuff, and I'm putting it in my car. Honestly, it feels like you're micromanaging everyone, and it's stifling. With that, Tucker kicked the office door open roughly and hurriedly left. According to the employees, Tucker's primary side, hustle, appears to be reselling goods online. While our company doesn't prohibit side jobs, they are allowed only if they don't leak company information or cause any harm. However, this allowance is strictly for activities outside of working hours. As long as he's receiving a salary from our company, he's obligated to focus solely on our business during working hours. If he's dedicating work hours to his reselling activities, then it's a significant issue. After questioning him so thoroughly today, I hope he at least feels some discomfort about continuing such behavior. Still, if I keep receiving similar reports from other employees, a thorough investigation will be necessary. It's disappointing that someone in a managerial position, who should be guiding and mentoring others, is the subject of such suspicions. Resolving to monitor Tucker's actions more closely, I returned to my work. However, just as I tried to focus, messages of concern from employees kept coming in. As part of our company benefits, we stock snacks and coffee for employees, but the budget for these is being depleted at an alarming rate. The frequency of coffee bean purchases has doubled, and snacks are disappearing by the box. On one occasion, a large amount of snacks I replenished with my own money vanished in a single day. Finding this strange, I posted a notice asking employees to be more mindful, but there was no improvement. On top of that, Holly, our finance manager, came to me for advice. "It's about Tucker," she said, looking distressed. "His expense claims are blatantly inappropriate. He's submitting bills for private dinners and family meals without hesitation. Could you do something about it?" she added with a troubled expression. Holly is an incredibly talented individual with certifications as a lawyer and tax accountant, like me. She had a tough time in middle school and was homeschooled for a while, focusing solely on her studies. Driven by a desire to prove wrong those who look down on her, she worked incredibly hard, which I deeply admire. On several occasions, I've witnessed Tucker mocking Holly because of her past struggles. Each time, I admonished him, but his response was always off the mark. You shouldn't be too harsh on someone so emotionally fragile. I admire Holly, who is almost the same age as me but has great ability and will. But she continued with a gloomy look on her face. Actually, I once saw him taking office supplies without permission, she added. I subtly warned him, but it seems he's still doing it. Since Tucker is older and often acts condescendingly, Holly probably finds it difficult to confront him directly. As we were discussing this in the break room, Luke walked in to make some coffee. Luke, who's also around my age, is a key contributor to the company with his expertise in marketing and sales. Thanks to his experience running his own business in the past, although his own company failed, he's used those lessons to offer invaluable suggestions to our organization. Having been with the company since my father founded it, Luke knows the company inside out. It's no exaggeration to say that the company functions smoothly even with me suddenly stepping in as CEO because of people like Luke. Holly and Luke are incredible assets to the company. Overhearing our conversation, Luke joined in. Holly, I think you should let Shane know about the other issue as well. It's not good to handle this alone. It's a problem for the organization as a whole, he said. Holly hesitated but eventually started speaking, her eyes welling up with tears. Lately, Tucker has been persistently inviting me to dinners that involve drinking. At first, I complied, but his intentions became increasingly obvious and uncomfortable. Tucker has a family, and above all, I feel genuinely afraid. Despite her expertise in legal matters, it's hard for her to act decisively when she's directly involved. Holly also loves this company and doesn't want to leave or feel unwelcome here. Knowing how much she cares about the company, I felt even more determined to ensure she didn't endure any further discomfort. Luke seemed to share my sentiments and, in an unusually firm tone, said, "If this is true, Holly shouldn't have to keep suffering. This is a serious issue, and we need to take immediate action." I nodded in agreement. "We'll prepare to set up an investigative committee. Please keep me informed of anything else that comes up." As we were discussing this, Tucker suddenly appeared in the break room. "How can you guys just stand around chatting in such a small space?" he said. "I need to make coffee, so move out of the way, will you?" He gestured dismissively at me with his hand, clearly annoyed. Though irritated, I stepped aside to let him pass. From his attitude, it seemed he hadn't overheard our conversation. After making his coffee, Tucker grabbed a handful of snacks from the overflowing snack box and said, "Later," as he walked out. At that moment, Luke called out to Tucker, "Tucker, are you really eating all those snacks by yourself? If you take that much, no one else will get any. Oh, by the way, I love the snacks." Luke spoke in a light-hearted, playful tone, so Tucker didn't seem offended and even smiled. Luke's ability to communicate without creating tension, combined with his strong work ethic, is a testament to why he excels in sales. "Oh, I didn't know you liked these. Next time, I'll bring some in for you. Look forward to it," Tucker replied. However, despite his words, Tucker left with a large pile of snacks in hand. Holly watched him leave and let out a sigh. "Tucker being generous enough to bring snacks. That'll never happen," she muttered. Witnessing these dynamics in the office left me feeling heavy-hearted. As the CEO, it's my responsibility to create an environment where employees can work comfortably. With that thought in mind, I left the break room, mentally planning my next steps. The next day, more trouble landed on my plate. As soon as I'd arrived at the office, Tucker stormed into the CEO's office. "Since you became CEO, my salary hasn't increased at all. Care to explain why that is?" "Over the past year, I've gotten a clearer view of the company's operations, but one thing is certain. Tucker's performance has been far from exceptional. Not to mention, he's currently facing allegations of inappropriate expense claims, misappropriation of company property, working on side hustles during company hours, and harassment complaints from employees. He seems unaware of all this and clearly lacks the ability to objectively evaluate his own work performance. It's troubling to have an employee who demands a raise while doing so little." Of course, I couldn't say any of this outright, so I carefully chose my words to help him understand. "I fully understand the importance of increasing employee satisfaction and retaining talented individuals to grow the company. I'm still assessing things as I settle into this role, but I'd assure you I'm committed to investing in personnel. Keep up the good work. I'm counting on you." Although I wanted to confront him with the reality, it wasn't the right time. Much still needed to be prepared. However, Tucker didn't like my response and became even more agitated. "If talent is so important, you should raise salaries now. Otherwise, people like me, top talent, will leave. It's a competitive job market these days, you know." He was clearly trying to intimidate me, but it only left me feeling disgusted. His threats didn't faze me. I carefully hid my emotions and replied with a smile. "I understand your point. However, if the company doesn't remain sustainable, it's all for nothing. We're finally gaining traction, and anyone can see that increasing labor costs significantly right now isn't a wise move." Hearing this, Tucker slammed his hand on my desk and gave me an unsettling grin. "Fine. That's your answer then. Don't come crying to me later." With those words, he turned his back and left the office without so much as a goodbye, slamming the door behind him. Later that evening, I returned from an outing to find a stack of envelopes on my desk. Curious, I picked them up and discovered that each one was labeled Resignation Letter. There were about 30 envelopes in total. It's unheard of for so many employees to submit their resignations at once. When I looked up, Tucker was standing in the doorway, having entered my office without me noticing. Grinning, he declared, "If you stay on as CEO, I'll take the employees with me. This company is done for." So that's his plan. All those times, he muttered, "You'll regret this." He was to resign and drag others down with him. It's my responsibility as CEO to prevent such rebellion, but it's still disappointing. Still, I made sure to confirm an important point with Tucker. "Tucker, just to confirm, are you saying you're resigning from the company?" Tucker burst into laughter, holding his stomach. "Of course I am. How many times do I have to say it? You didn't give me a raise, so I have no choice. Talented people won't stick around in a boring company anymore." Hearing this, I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Thank you. That's very helpful. I'll start processing the paperwork immediately." Tucker, clueless about what I was implying, looked at me with a baffled expression and blurted out, "What?" He still doesn't know that the truth, which is far from convenient for him, is about to come to light. "What's the meaning of this? Don't try to bluff me. Even Luke and Holly, the core members of this company, are leaving." I knew this wasn't true, but I chose not to deny it outright. Instead, I began to reveal the facts to Tucker one step at a time. "I understand your intention to resign, Tucker, but we'll be contacting you a few times going forward, so please ensure you're available. Other than your accumulated funds, there's likely nothing else we owe you. I wanted to inform you in advance so you can plan for the future." Tucker's eyes widened at my words. "Hey, what nonsense are you spouting? Are you saying I won't get any compensation or bonus? I've been working diligently. What have I done to deserve this?" As Tucker stepped forward aggressively, Luke and Holly entered the office. Holly spoke first. "Are you not aware of your actions? Your offenses have been largely proven, and you will have to face the consequences." Tucker looked between Luke and Holly with a trembling voice. "Wait, what's going on here? Aren't you two leaving with me? You promised to quit this company and work for the one I'm starting, didn't you?" Holly and Luke looked at each other at Tucker's words. Luke then said in disgust, "Who said we were coming with you? I might have said it sounds interesting, but I never agreed to anything. Starting a company isn't as easy as you think. Someone who can't even earn the trust of their colleagues isn't likely to succeed. There's no way we're getting on a sinking ship we can already see as doomed." While Tucker's words seemed to come from an idea that did not seem to have accumulated management knowledge, the words of Luke, who has started a business once and experienced failure, carry a different weight. Luke knows the joys and fears of starting a business. He must intuitively understand that Tucker will not be able to make it work. Luke continued, "By the way, in the company you plan to start, would you turn a blind eye if your employees worked on side hustles? If so, maybe I'll take a job at your company while still working here. Oh, and for the record, I've already reported to Shane that you've been reselling goods during work hours." Tucker visibly panicked at Luke's remark. "What? How do you know?" "You must be mistaken. I've never done any side hustles." Desperate to deny it, Tucker tried to deflect, but Luke pressed on relentlessly. "Then why do you, someone with no need to leave the office frequently, go out during work hours? You claimed it was for a transaction with someone unfamiliar with the internet, but there's no record of such transactions anywhere in our systems. Out of curiosity, I once followed you to see for myself." Hearing this, Tucker snapped and retorted defiantly, "You spied on me? That's a dirty trick. Anyway, the blame lies with the boss who underpays me. I have a family to support. I had no choice." Tucker's claims were baseless. He was being paid above the industry average. If he couldn't manage his finances, it was either due to poor budgeting or outright dishonesty. Before Tucker could continue his excuses, Holly stepped in. So that's why you've been submitting inappropriate expense claims. We verified that you filed expenses for family dinners and personal purchases. Every one of those receipts has been traced. As Holly spoke, Tucker's face turned pale, and sweat began to beat on his forehead. His reaction only confirmed the truth of her accusation. Holly pressed further. By the way, do you recognize that old printer over there? It's one I purchased on a resale app. Tucker turned to look at the printer Holly was pointing at. His eyes widened in shock. No way, he murmured under his breath. You've been taking company property and selling it online, haven't you? The model numbers match, and some still have the company's inventory stickers attached. Recently, your sales must have spiked, right? That's because I've been buying them back. As Tucker's knees began to shake, Holly approached him, her voice chillingly cold. Under the charge of embezzlement, you could face up to 10 years in prison. Additionally, your repeated mockery of me for my school history constitutes defamation. I could seek monetary damages for that. Ignoring his pleas for forgiveness, Holly continued, her gaze icy. And let's not forget how you forced me to go to a bar despite my refusals. I won't ever forget that. Your actions could be classified as course of sexual misconduct, which carries a potential prison sentence of 6 months to 10 years. Be prepared for the consequences. Tucker collapsed to his knees, defeated. Looking up at me, he spoke in a faint voice. So, they're not resigning, are they? And I guess none of the others will follow me either. Feeling both pity and contempt, I responded honestly. It's not like I immediately thought the resignation letters were fake, but when I saw that all the handwriting matched, it raised suspicions. When I first saw the resignation letters, I thought perhaps I had driven my employees to the brink. But after noticing that the handwriting on all the envelopes was identical, I began to suspect they were forged. Tucker's sudden announcement that he was taking employees with him only solidified my doubts. In any case, you can't stay here any longer. Pack up your things and leave by the end of the day. We'll be in touch about the next steps. Thank you for your time here. Tucker quietly left the office. Further investigations revealed even more misconduct on Tucker's part. The most serious issue was the breach of customer data. It came to light that he had sold sensitive company information to third parties for substantial sums of money. The sheer amount of wrongdoings we uncovered required thorough review and legal action. Ironically, the reselling side hustle he was so proud of turned out to be a failure. Once Holly, his main buyer, stopped purchasing from him, it seemed his sales completely dried up. Once all of Tucker's offenses were confirmed, he would undoubtedly face consequences far greater than the small profits he made. I heard that he had to sell his newly built house and now lives alone in a small apartment. Perhaps even his family has abandoned him. I don't know what lies ahead for him, but I can only hope that he takes responsibility for his actions and moves forward with a sense of repentance. As for me, I've already begun working on expanding our business alongside my talented team. Going public is just the beginning. I also aim to expand internationally in the future. If everything goes well, the company's performance will grow exponentially. Dad's dream is within reach. Sometimes, I feel anxious about whether everything will truly work out, but in those moments, I picture Dad's face and shake off the doubt. I'm determined to succeed. As I looked up at the sky, I felt as though Dad was smiling and nodding in approval. We're leaving right now if you don't make it a 5-day weekend with triple pay. My desk was flooded with resignation letters from 6 employees who all joined the company through board connections. They claimed that I am the reason they wish to resign. The business might hold me accountable if it occurs. In order for the nepotism hires to feel content with the outcome and withdraw their resignations, remaining with the company, they enlisted the executives to penalize me more severely than was necessary. This is what these nepotism hires really want to achieve. It appears that they don't like me at all. They must be anticipating my terror when I receive 6 resignation letters at once. However, I don't cringe at such things. Okay, I'll keep these for now. I'll ask our president, Mr. Morris, again, but I don't think he'll agree to such ridiculous requests. It appears that you will all be departing. What, you think you can just let us quit? Is there something wrong with that? This is absurd. I'm discussing this with Mr. Morris directly. The nepotism hires became irate when they see I didn't respond as they had anticipated. However, the response will remain the same even if they bring this up with Mr. Morris. I call Mr. Morris right there in front of them. I get it. I'll take them all in. The nepotism hires are clearly spooked by Mr. Morris's answer. It's only natural. They don't understand why I agree with Mr. Morris. Steve is my name. I work for an IT company and am 50 years old. I am in charge of the sales division. Sales at an IT company is a question that people occasionally ask. However, in order to market its goods and services, every business requires salespeople. Our company's primary focus is on big data and AI-powered digital marketing. We use outcomes analysis to develop systems to market our clients' goods and services and offer implementation solutions. Therefore, you needed expertise even in sales to demonstrate what our organization is capable of. At first, I didn't know much about IT, but I made an effort to learn. I think I could now manage the fundamentals of a junior programmer's job after 5 years. It was a little intimidating to start something new in my mid-40s, but it is doable with a little perseverance. I changed employment, which is why I suddenly needed to know about IT. What caused that change? Specifically, the typical office politics. At my former job, I became embroiled in a power battle. Vice President Kyle, President Sanders' son, and another executive, Travis, were at each other's throats as he prepared to retire. My employer, sales manager Mark, was on Team Travis, but I wasn't on either side. Kyle defeated Travis and went on to become president. Mark lost his position as sales manager when Kyle took over, and someone from Kyle's team took his place. That kind of move would normally be a major issue, but the Kyle faction appeared adept at finding a middle ground. Therefore, even if several people voiced concerns, none of them were successful. Adulthood's backstage world is a frightening place. These kinds of unfair practices were occurring in many departments, which led to a brewing problem. On the surface, everything appeared to be tranquil, but I could sense the backlash moving in my direction as well. I didn't care about office factions and didn't want to get involved in the drama just because I had worked for Mark, who was Travis's ally. Seeing coworkers disparage one another over trivial matters like, who do you like better, Kyle or Travis, just made me decide to quit. I need to find a new job soon. Changing jobs at 45 was daunting to say the least. I didn't regret my decision, but I was feeling the weight of it as I scrolled through job listings. Then, one posting caught my eye. A sales position at an IT company. Let's see. It looks like it's a newly established company, and they're looking to strengthen their sales team. I've got plenty of sales experience, and they need someone urgently. This might be my chance. I applied right away. So, everyone, Steve will be joining us from today. My name is Steve. I worked in sales at my previous company. Though I'm new to the IT field, I'll do my best, and I appreciate your patience. That's how I came to my current company. When I introduced myself, Mr. Morris welcomed me to the team, and everyone applauded. At the time, the company was still very young, having been established just 3 years prior. We're a full subsidiary of a larger company. Originally, our line of business was part of the parent company's operations. They spun it off into a subsidiary. It's called the carve-out. When our company was formed, many employees from the parent company's digital marketing division came over, but most were tech specialists, leaving us with few people skilled in sales. That's why they posted a sales job opening. And that's how I ended up here, diving into an unfamiliar industry at 45. It was nerve-wracking, but everyone kindly taught me about digital marketing, including data collection, analysis, and tools and software usage. The energy typical of a young company was contagious, and I felt my own motivation rising as I absorbed the atmosphere. I was so eager to learn that my colleagues seemed to think I was worth teaching. They even showed me programming basics and some hardware knowledge, things not strictly necessary for sales. Of course, I couldn't just focus on gaining knowledge. I also handled my sales tasks thoroughly. Apparently, the company had struggled seriously with a lack of sales strength and had trouble securing work. I thought, this is my chance to repay the favor, and eagerly shared my sales expertise with the sales team. As a result, the sales department grew rapidly. Recognizing this success, I was promoted from assistant manager to department head within just 5 years. That's how desperate the company was for sales expertise. Over the past 5 years, I've been able to work without the bizarre human drama that had plagued me at my previous job. Everything had been smooth sailing. But as it turns out, strange relationships seem to pop up out of nowhere. Since our auditor, Mike, recently retired, we'll have someone new from the parent company joining us as auditor. It shouldn't affect most of you, but keep it in mind. In the past year, 2 board members retired, with 1 more this year. It seems that the people who become board members in our company are often high-ranking or high-achieving employees from the parent company who join us after their retirement, a sort of corporate version of senior placement. While this practice can be criticized, the retired board members genuinely worked for the company's benefit, so I didn't see it as senior placement. But that sentiment only applied to those retired board members. The 3 new arrivals who joined since last year were different. They're not picking up the phone again. Sorry, could you check if this part of the document is correct? It's urgent. They were here around 11. So at this hour, they're probably. I'll bet they're all over there. I often get asked by Mr. Morris to do work that technically isn't mine. Mainly, it's tracking down the board members. I've pretty much figured out their routines by now. Ah, there you are. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm here at Mr. Morris's request. Oh, it's you again. We're in an important meeting here. Don't you have any sense? Well, that may be, but I'm here on direct orders from Mr. Morris. It'd be easier if he'd stop going through us and just do it himself. That Mr. Morris, no sense of what's appropriate. Huh. Apparently, the 3 board members were holding a very important meeting. The venue? A private room in a fancy Japanese restaurant. The table was laden with beautifully plated seasonal dishes, and 5 empty beer bottles lined one side. It certainly looked like a high-stakes meeting. Suppressing a sigh, I handed one of the board members the documents Mr. Morris had asked me to deliver. The document wasn't particularly thick, but it was packed with detailed numbers that would take time to review carefully. But the board member merely skimmed through it for 5 seconds before handing it back. It's fine. Just go ahead and send it to the tax office. Understood. I'll let Mr. Morris know now that you're done. Get out of here. You're interrupting our meeting. Of course, sorry to intrude. I bowed to the board members and left the private room. I didn't leave right away, though. Standing quietly just outside the sliding door, from inside, I occasionally overheard conversations about work, like, I just closed a huge deal. But more often, it was things like, I recently lost money in stocks, or I spent $30,000 on a family vacation, which to me only sounded like smug, boastful tales accompanied by laughter. I wasn't in a position to criticize the board members, and even if I did, it wouldn't change anything. Eventually, I quietly stepped away from the room. The new board members have been doing whatever they want since they arrived. For starters, they rarely come to the office. Since they're on a delegation contract, not as employees, they aren't obligated to keep regular hours like the rest of us. So simply not coming to the office isn't an issue in itself. The previous board members would also come and go, but they were diligent about their work. These new board members, however, are different. When they're not around, they're reportedly golfing, traveling, or spending entire days drinking at home. When they occasionally come to the office, it's usually just before noon, and soon after, the three executives head out together. Their destination is often an upscale restaurant, where they enjoy food and drinks under the guise of a meeting. For these board members, the office is just a convenient meeting point. If they at least handled their work properly, I'd have no complaints. But, as expected, their work is sloppy. Most of their responsibilities are just dumped on Mr. Morris. Their job seems to be pretending to work. Because of their slipshod approach, all the extra work ends up falling on Mr. Morris. So, why doesn't Mr. Morris say anything to them? It's yet another adult issue, like factional rivalries. I appreciate you all always handling the board members for me. I'm just swamped, and if I didn't send someone with a bit of authority, they'd likely get offended. That's fine, but is everything really okay? Yes, it's fine. Not like I could say anything, even if I wanted to. One of the downsides of being a hired president, Mr. Morris smiled, taking the documents from me. He's a hired president. While he's responsible for managing the company, he doesn't wield the authority you'd typically associate with the title. In some ways, his position isn't much different from a regular employee. The executives working under Mr. Morris held high positions at the parent company. As a result, within the company, the group of executives from the parent company has more influence than Mr. Morris himself. Unable to assert his opinions or rein in their reckless behavior, Mr. Morris must be feeling quite frustrated. Up to now, the main issue had been between the board members and Mr. Morris, but their unchecked behavior is starting to affect us as well. I'm new to both sales and IT, but I'll do my best this year. 6 months after a new board member joined, a new mid-career hire joined the team. His name was Spencer. He was hired to fill a position left by the previous assistant manager in the sales department, who had recently left. It was good to have additional personnel, but the selection and hiring process were riddled with issues. Well then, let's start by familiarizing you with the company, I said, leading Spencer around the various departments, explaining things as we went. But he seemed to have no interest in work-related topics and kept derailing the conversation. Hey, Steve, know any good spots around here with a nice vibe where you can quietly grab a drink? I want to scout out a place I could use for a date after work. I'm in the middle of explaining the development department right now. Who cares about that? You're not one of those uptight types, are you? Steve, if you're too serious, you'll end up overworked and exhausted. Take it easy. I'm the department head, showing around the assistant manager, yet here Spencer was, laughing and giving me a hearty pat on the shoulder. It was clear he didn't take me seriously at all. I guess it's true what they say, like father, like son. Yes, this new assistant manager was the son of one of the board members, and according to Mr. Morris, Spencer was hired under pressure from his father, the board member. Apparently, he was ushered in as a prestigious university graduate with a wealth of job experience. Nepotism isn't illegal after all. And it's true. Spencer graduated from a top university and has indeed held various jobs. Just hearing this, one might think Spencer is an elite. On paper, he's a highly qualified addition. But there was one critical piece of information the board member neglected to mention. Hey, are your hands even moving? You don't seem to be getting anything done. What? My hands are moving, aren't they? I see you just scrolling on your phone. When I say moving your hands, I mean working, not just tapping your screen. Just taking a break here. There's a festival event in my mobile game right now. I'll get back to work as soon as I pull the character I'm after. The character? Look, I need you to actually learn the job here. If you're going to hand me such boring tasks, it's only natural I'd lack motivation, right? Don't worry. I'll finish by the end of the day. That's a 30-minute task, by the way. Oh, come on, Steve. You're ruining my luck here. I haven't even hit a single featured pull. If you keep bugging me, I'll tell my dad you're distracting me while I'm trying to focus. I was at a loss for words, finding it exhausting even to respond to him. To help Spencer get accustomed to his job, I gave him something simple, the kind of task even new hires could handle. Yet he dismissed it as boring work. Apparently, a wealth of job experience meant that he'd simply drifted from one job to the next. The reason he'd bounced around jobs was obvious. With a father in a high-ranking position at a company and a degree from a prestigious university, Spencer developed a rather prideful personality. He likely displays the same attitude wherever he works, repeatedly quitting with claims like, "They're not making the most of my talents." He seemed to view himself as an elite, but his lack of tenure in any job meant he probably hadn't developed any real skills or experience. Was someone like that really suited to be in a management role? I finally consulted with Mr. Morris. "I'm on the same page as you, but, well, because of his father." "Right. Exactly. The assistant manager position is open, so let's put my son in it." That's how he ended up hired at that level. If we were to remove him from the role now, well, you can imagine, that would be a nightmare. Mr. Morris and I had no choice but to put up with it for now. I could still correct Spencer's behavior here and there, but making a big deal out of it was best avoided. The less I intervened, the more Spencer seemed to take after the board members. "Good morning. Sorry, I got carried away last night with some friends." Spencer strolled in at 11:30 a.m., and despite it not yet being lunchtime, he immediately started eating. "Hey, what are you going to tell me to get to work?" "If I start now, I'll just be interrupted by the lunch break, and that's not efficient. It's better to skip the morning and concentrate in the afternoon, don't you think?" In the end, Spencer devoted his afternoon to playing mobile games on his phone. Spencer's behavior was clearly bringing down morale around the office. The impact on me, as someone who had to interact with him directly, was especially harsh. I could feel the mental exhaustion creeping in. As if Spencer alone wasn't enough, others just like him began to spring up. I'll be joining the system support department. I'm excited to finally try a job I've been interested in. A few months after Spencer joined, a new mid-career hire was brought into the system support department. The department hadn't actually needed more people, yet they hired someone with no experience in it and minimal knowledge of the field. This was another board member connection. Apparently, one board member thought, "If that person's son could be brought in, then so can mine," and pushed to get their own child in the door. While this new hire wasn't given a management position, I knew the struggles that came with managing nepotism hires. Of course, the third board member wasn't about to stay quiet, thus a third connection hire joined the company. I figured this had to be the limit, but it seemed the board members and connection hires' mindset was well beyond anything I could have imagined. Meet my girlfriend. She said she was bored with her last job, so I told her, "Why not join us here?" Spencer had his girlfriend brought in through his father's influence as casually as if he were inviting her to his own home. At this point, anything went. The nepotism hire in the system support department then brought in a friend. This friend, apparently the son of a CEO from another company, was hired under the pretext that it would establish a business connection. And the final straw. I'll be joining the general affairs department. This is my first time in an office job, so I don't know much, but I look forward to learning. A young woman in her early 20s, not a relative of any board member, was brought in. According to Mr. Morris, she was a regular at one of the board members' favorite places. In this case, I couldn't see any logic or adult considerations behind the hire. Allegedly, she'd once mentioned working at an IT company. Sounds cool. I'd love to be able to say that, so the board member had said, "Then join us." I have no prejudice against people who work in the nightlife industry. However, it was obvious this young woman was here purely on a whim. My condolences to the General Affairs Department. Within mere months of Spencer's arrival, the number of nepotism hires had grown to 6. Not a single one of them took their work seriously. Every one of them was a Spencer type, and since they were all the same type, with the shared trait of having joined through connections, they quickly bonded into a single group. The kind of people who, once grouped, become emboldened. The nepotism hires behavior only became worse. All right, good work, everyone. One day, just past closing time, I heard loud voices coming from a meeting room that wasn't supposed to be in use. I had a pretty good idea of what was going on, but I had to check to be sure. With a heavy feeling in my chest, I stood up from my chair and headed toward the meeting room. "Oh, Steve, great to see you. What are you guys doing?" "Just having a little party." Everyone wanted different things to eat, so we all picked up what we wanted and decided to have some drinks here. The large table in the meeting room was covered with pizza, fried chicken, and something that looked like Korean food, all giving off a delicious aroma. They also had a wide variety of alcoholic drinks. It was quite the party. The only issue was that it was taking place in a company meeting room. "Hey, Steve, want to join us for a bit?" "No, thanks. I still have work to do." "Ah, you're as serious as ever. There are still people working around here, so try to keep it down." Yeah, we got it already." Drained from dealing with these nepotism hires, I left the meeting room in a sort of mental autopilot. For now, I figured that was all I could do. In the end, the boisterous laughter of the nepotism hires repeatedly echoed through the walls of the meeting room, and things on the work side continued to go downhill. "Spencer, do you have the materials I asked for?" "Ah, not yet." "Don't say that like it's no big deal. I told you before, this kind of simple work just doesn't motivate me. I mean, I'm an assistant manager. When am I going to get a real task?" I thought I was assigning Spencer work that matched his actual abilities rather than his title, but he clearly didn't appreciate it. Knowing he likely wouldn't get the work done, I'd quietly assign the same task to another team member as backup. As things stood, Spencer was contributing nothing, but as a manager, part of my job is to utilize our team effectively. So, I decided to give Spencer a slightly more challenging task, just to see how he'd handle it. "Fine, we have a major negotiation coming up soon. How about you prepare the sales materials for it? We've already assigned the lead, so you won't be involved in the actual negotiations, but if your materials are good, we'll use them. It's an important presentation for a major deal." That's more like it. I've been waiting for something like this. All right then, here's the client's information. This is research on the industry, and here are the compiled client requests. You don't have to explain everything in such detail. Okay, if you're sure. You've got 5 days, so take your time and do it thoroughly. Spencer seemed genuinely excited to dive into the task, like a kid with a new toy. As for the sales materials, I'd already completed them myself. If Spencer managed to make something better, I genuinely would use his version. But given his history of job hopping, I doubted it. Still, he did graduate from a prestigious university, so he might surprise me and create at least a part that's better than mine. If that happened, I'd simply incorporate that section. Having his work used for a major negotiation could boost his confidence and maybe even lead him to take his work more seriously. And if he couldn't complete it, he might at least realize his own limitations and reflect. Whatever the outcome, it should benefit Spencer in some way. At least that's what I'd hoped, but I'd underestimated Spencer's unique way of thinking. What does this term even mean? Wait, does this mean that messes up this entire section? Oh, come on. At first, Spencer had eagerly started working on the project, but by the next day, he was muttering complaints, scratching his head in frustration. His skill level was barely above that of a fresh graduate. It looked like this task would indeed lead him to reflect on his capabilities. "Hey, are you doing all right?" "I'm fine. No need to rush me." I tried to offer some help, but Spencer seemed trapped by his own bravado, unable to admit he might need assistance. Even if he couldn't finish, I'd already done the work myself, so there was no real risk. I decided to just let things play out. 4 days after assigning Spencer the task, I noticed he wasn't at his desk right after closing time. Where could he have gone? Just then, I heard loud voices coming from the meeting room. It seemed the nepotism hires were holding yet another drinking party. Did Spencer really have time for this? It was time to step in. I stood up and made my way to the meeting room. As I reached for the door handle, I heard Spencer's voice through the door, making me pause. When I asked for a real task, he handed me one with the difficulty cranked to max. No way. That's a 5-day task, and he has the nerve to ask me if I'm all right. Trying to provoke me? Can't he assign work at a more reasonable level with a more realistic schedule? When you push people too hard, they just end up making mistakes. This is definitely some kind of harassment. Guess it's the tall poppy thing, right? Spencer, you're an elite after all, graduating from a top university. Is harassment still a thing these days? That guy is so narrow-minded, probably has the emotional depth of a bottle cap. Exactly. People like that need to face consequences. Are you going to ask your dad to deal with him? I'd love to, but my dad's hardly ever here. Right. I've been waiting the past 4 days, but he hasn't shown up, so I haven't been able to bring it up. Can't you call him? He's not picking up. Probably off on another overseas trip with Mom or something. Looks like Steve's punishment will have to wait then. Well, I've been thinking. Hearing Spencer's scheme, I felt a fresh wave of exhaustion wash over me. I had endured his self-indulgent behavior, even tried my best to get him to take his work seriously. But now he'd interpreted every simple task I assigned and every slightly challenging project as deliberate harassment. I was left with a strange mix of disappointment and anger. And on top of that, he was planning to go through the board to try and punish me for imagined slights. The other nepotism hires seemed to be on the same page as him. Their mindset wasn't just out of left field, it was practically orbiting the moon. With the backing of the board, these hires treated the company like their personal playground, stirring up chaos. I'd hoped there was still a path forward for them, but it was clear now that no such path was needed. Soon enough, their backing would be removed, and they'd get a taste of the real world. Back at my desk, I picked up the phone. The next day, while I was working, the 6 nepotism hires lined up in front of my desk. They all had smirks on their faces, each holding a resignation letter in their hand. I already knew what they were going to say, having overheard their plans in the meeting room yesterday. If you don't make it a 5-day weekend with triple pay, we're quitting right now. At Spencer's cue, they slammed their resignation letters onto my desk. The nepotism hires from other departments were here too, likely to create the appearance that 6 employees wanted to quit because of me. If they could pull that off, I'd be held responsible. Then, with the board's intervention, they'd impose a harsher punishment on me, which would allow the nepotism hires to graciously withdraw their resignations and stay. As long as they submitted the letters, the board would handle the rest. So the reason didn't matter. They'd chosen an absurd demand like 5-day weekends with triple pay, knowing it would never be granted, just as they'd planned yesterday. I'm sure they were waiting for me to panic, faced with 6 resignation letters all at once, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Understood. I'll hold on to these for now. I'll check with Mr. Morris, but I don't think this demand will be approved, so you'll all likely end up resigning. What do you understand what these resignations mean? All of us will be gone if the demands aren't met. You're resigning, right? Isn't that what you wanted? Is there a problem? No. I mean, are you okay with us leaving? I'm a board member's son, and everyone here has their own board member looking out for them. If you let us quit, I'll have my dad revoke our resignations and make sure you're fired instead. Feel free to do so if you can. You really don't get it, do you? This is pointless. I'll just go straight to Mr. Morris. He's my dad's puppet anyway, so he'll listen to me. No need to make a fuss. Mr. Morris has been swamped, so let me just give him a call for you. I picked up my desk phone and dialed with the speaker on so the nepotism hiders could hear. Hello, Mr. Morris. Sorry to bother you when you're so busy. This is about what we discussed over the phone yesterday evening. Oh, you mean Spencer and the others' resignations? What they submitted. Resignations saying they want 5-day weekends with triple pay, and I'm holding on to them now. What would you like me to do? Got it. Let's accept them all. Hand the resignation letters to HR. Understood. How's everything on your end? Busy with all the follow-up, but nothing unmanageable. All right then. I'll proceed as we discussed. Yep, I'll leave it in your hands. Ending the call, I gently placed the receiver down and looked up at the nepotism hires. They couldn't hide their shock. I could tell they had a lot of questions for me. As their manager, I thought I'd answer them thoroughly. How did he know about our plan yesterday? I heard your little scheme outside the meeting room. You were talking so loud, it was impossible not to overhear. I figured, since you're planning to have your fathers back you up, you didn't care who overheard. So that's why you called Mr. Morris yesterday. But why would he accept our resignation so easily? He's supposed to be our dad's puppet. There's no way he actually let us quit. What if your dads were no longer around? What? My dad? The official announcement is still coming, but yeah. All your fathers have been dismissed from the board. What? My dad? I don't have all the details yet, but one of them landed a big contract for the company without consulting the board and accepted it unilaterally. He reportedly said, "It's a big deal. What's the problem?" But it turns out he was secretly taking kickbacks from that company. A kickback. Another one lost a huge amount in personal stock trading and used the company's savings account as collateral to cover his debts. That's reckless. He could have put the whole company at risk. And the third one, he was simply embezzling funds. He tried to cover it up with fake tax records, but the tax authority caught on. The company now faces penalties, late fees, and additional taxes. The three of them even coordinated to falsify financial reports to the parent company. That's why they were dismissed. Oh, and the one who stole funds. He's been arrested for embezzlement. So the tax guy, that's my dad. No wonder I couldn't reach him, and I guess that's why the others haven't been around either. Mr. Morris is running around trying to handle all of this right now. How did it all go wrong so quickly? It wasn't quick. Mr. Morris started suspecting your fathers the moment they began acting out. But as a hired president, if he'd acted openly, they could have found a reason to fire him. So he quietly started gathering information that could lead to their dismissal. That's also why he didn't discipline you all too harshly, to avoid making waves with the board members. It took a lot of steady effort. He couldn't act openly, so he pulled together a few trusted people. I was one of them. I'd observe your father's lunch meetings, golfing trips, and so on. I picked up on things like the big contracts, stock losses, and shady tax adjustments. But Mr. Morris couldn't have investigated everything on his own. Wouldn't he have needed a lawyer or private investigator? Surely our dads would have noticed that. True, hiring an investigator would have raised suspicion. Mr. Morris could have discreetly consulted our legal advisor, Henry. But knowing the board members were doing shady things, they'd have been watching Henry. So he didn't go that route. Then, who dug up the dirt? You don't get someone dismissed from the board without solid evidence. Surely Mr. Morris hired a pro. He turned to our external management advisor, Harry. Management advisors are often experienced former executives who know how to handle corporate crises. Your dads were too focused on Henry to notice Mr. Morris consulting with Harry, who quietly gathered evidence and handled things behind the scenes. By the time your fathers realized what was happening, it was already over. No way. The nepotism hires listened, slowly realizing that their powerful shield had been dismantled. All 6 of them stood there, looking pale and shaken. About those resignation letters, could we take them back? If we hand these in and the board members are gone, that means we'll actually be resigning, right? We will work hard, we promise. Oh, no need to push yourselves. Weren't you asking for 5 days, weekends, and triple pay? We can't meet those conditions here, so I suggest you find a company that can. I'm really sorry we couldn't make your dreams come true. What? You're not giving the resignation letters back? Isn't that illegal, forcing us to resign when we don't actually want to? Spencer has drifted from one job to another up until now. The more times he switches jobs, the worse the impression he leaves during job searches. If each stint is short, that impression only gets worse. With his father arrested and no one left to rely on, perhaps he realized he couldn't afford another hit to his job record, so he clung to me. But shaking him off was easy. Oh, so you're not resigning voluntarily then? Perhaps termination would be better. What? Termination? On what grounds? Poor work performance. You can't just fire me for that. That's wrongful termination. If you do this, I'll sue the company. Actually, it's not our company. Policies clearly cover work performance. Usually, poor attitude alone isn't enough for termination, but you came in late, didn't complete tasks, and threw parties in the meeting room. I think the evidence speaks for itself. Any claim of wrongful termination wouldn't stand up. You've got to be kidding. No, I'm quite serious. Leaving voluntarily will look better on your record, wouldn't it? I'll take these resignation letters to HR. None of you have any work to hand over, so don't worry about coming in tomorrow. I stood up and made my way to HR. Behind me, the nepotism hires slumped in defeat. Some staring at the ceiling, others looking down. The next day, I arrived at work to find parts of the office trashed. Apparently, Spencer had vandalized it out of spite. The security cameras had captured everything. Of course, Spencer was arrested. He even looked at the cameras a few times, so he clearly intended to get caught. Having lost his father's support and been forced out of the company, he'd hit rock bottom. In light of the board members' misconduct, the parent company decided to respect our company's independence fully, ensuring that no board members would be assigned to us from now on. After getting tangled in office politics at my last company and dealing with this corporate nepotism here, things had finally stabilized thanks to the parent company's strong response. The atmosphere returned to the positive vibe we had before the rogue board members arrived. It seems there won't be any more strange troubles to get caught up in. At last, I found an environment where I could focus on my work without unnecessary distractions. From now on, I'm determined to work hard alongside everyone in the company.